Margaret set the third plate on her kitchen table, then turned to the small television on the counter. The evening news was starting, but tonight, the face on screen stopped her cold. Ashley, the girl she had fed every weeknight for 10 years, was the anchor.
That's my girl, but something's wrong.
Ashley's eyes glistened. She drew a shaky breath and pulled a folded yellowed paper from her blazer. In her kitchen, Margaret's hand tightened around the wooden spoon. She hadn't seen Ashley in person for years, but she never missed her broadcast.
Good evening. Tonight, I need to break from the headlines to share something personal.
What are you doing, child?
The studio fell silent. Even the Chiron operator froze, leaving the breaking news banner hanging without a story.
20 years ago today, a woman I barely knew set a third plate at her dinner table. For me.
The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. Margaret didn't hear it. She only saw the paper in Ashley's hand and the tears streaming down her face. But 20 years ago, there was no camera. Only a 7-year-old girl dragging her backpack up the steps next door. Margaret noticed her from the kitchen window. Same time every weekday. Alone.
Where is her mother? That child's been sitting on the stoop for an hour.
She learned later the mother worked double shifts at the county hospital. The girl was a latchkey kid at age 7.
Young lady, you look hungry. Come inside and wash your hands. I've got meatloaf.
My mama says not to bother nobody.
You aren't bothering me. I set an extra plate years ago, waiting for someone to fill it.
Ashley walked through that door and didn't leave for 10 years. Every weeknight. Homework at the table, evening news, a third plate.
You like it? I put extra ketchup on top, just like my mama did.
That was the first of thousands of dinners. In that kitchen, a latchkey girl found a home. It became the rhythm of Margaret's retirement. A third plate, homework at the table, and the evening news at 6. As the years passed, the latchkey girl grew taller, but her backpack always landed by the same chair.
You finished that math? Good. Now tell me, what did the president say today?
I am gonna be on that screen one day, Miss Margaret, you'll see.
And Margaret believed her. She saw how the girls studied the anchors, mimicked their cadence with a spatula for a microphone.
That child has the hunger, not just for meatloaf.
But the hunger came from more than ambition. It came from the silence of an empty apartment next door.
Mama's working again tonight. She said she'd be home by midnight.
You stay here long as you need. I've got the late news at 11, and you can help me with the crossword.
And that was how a retired postal worker's kitchen became the broadcast studio, where a future network anchor first learned to speak to the world. The girl with the spatula microphone was growing up fast, but Margaret never told her what those dinners meant to a woman who had no children of her own.
Never married, never had kids, but this child, she's the one the Lord sent.
On nights when Ashley's mother worked late, Margaret would find the girl asleep on the coral, asleep on the couch, homework still in her lap. She'd lift the books gently, pull a crocheted blanket over the child's shoulders, and whisper a prayer.
Lord, protect this one. Let her dream come true.
Then she'd return to the stove, stirring a pot of tomorrow's soup, the spoon moving in a quiet rhythm of thanks every Sunday. She read Ashley stories from a worn library book, Adventures of Girls Who Changed the World.
One day, that girl will be on television, and I'll be right here watching.
She kept a photo of Ashley on her refrigerator, the third-grade school portrait, with a gap-toothed smile. Margaret never expected thanks. Feeding that child was the purpose she'd prayed for. The years passed, and Ashley's voice filled larger rooms. High school AV club, then a college radio mic, then a college radio mic, then a local station's night shift. Margaret watched it all from her kitchen chair, a scrapbook growing thick with newspaper clippings and grainy printouts. Each promotion meant a smaller city left behind, a longer distance between her row house and Ashley's new life.
She's too busy to call, but she's out there doing it. That's enough.
They exchanged Christmas cards, a few text messages on birthdays, but the dinners ended when Ashley left for college. Still, every evening at 6, she turned on the news. It was the closest she came to hearing her girl's voice. Tonight was no different. Pot roast in the oven, the third plate set out of habit, and the remote in hand. She didn't note the date on the wall calendar. 20 years to the day since that first meatloaf. For Margaret, it was just Tuesday.
Let's see what's happening in the world tonight.
She had no idea that tonight Ashley would break every rule of broadcast journalism just to say thank you. Margaret pressed the power button. The screen glowed, and Ashley's face filled the countertop television. But something was off. No headlines, no graphics.
Tonight marks exactly 20 years since a stranger changed my life with a third plate at her dinner table.
In the studio, her co-anchor stared, stunned. This was not the script.
I know you are watching, Miss Margaret. You taught me to watch the news.
She's talking right to me.
Ashley's hand went to her blazer pocket and emerged with a folded yellowed paper.
That paper. It looks like the note pages from my old cookbook.
I wrote this when I was 12. A will. And I hid it where I knew I'd never forget.
She unfolded it slowly, and the camera zoomed in. On the paper, in a child's uneven letters, words that would break a million hearts. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. She knew that paper. She knew that handwriting.
In 6th grade, we learned about wills and legacy. I had nothing to give except my whole future.
So one night at Miss Margaret's table, she tore a page from the back of a notebook and began to write.
This is for Miss Margaret. She gave me dinner, so I am giving her everything.
She folded the note into a tiny square, pressing the creases sharp with her fingernail. Then she crept to the bookshelf where the red Betty Crocker cookbook sat, its spine cracked from years of Tuesday meatloafs.
Page 212, meatloaf, our Tuesday dinner.
She slipped the note inside, right next to the recipe for classic meatloaf, and closed the book.
She'll find it someday, maybe when I am on television.
Miss Margaret never found it. I retrieved it last Christmas when I visited home.
For 20 years, that child's will waited between the pages of a well-loved cookbook, unseen and unclaimed.
Last Christmas, I came home. While Miss Margaret napped in her chair, I walked straight to the Betty Crocker cookbook.
She opened it to page 212, the meatloaf recipe, and there, still folded, was a 12-year-old's promise.
I pulled it out and slipped it into my pocket. She never knew. Every day since, it's been in my briefcase. Through every broadcast, every headline, every breaking story, that note never left my side.
The studio camera held steady on the yellowed square, the child's handwriting barely visible through the paper.
I've been waiting for this exact date. 20 years since you set that third plate, Miss Margaret.
She remembered the date. I didn't even remember the date.
And I think it's time the world knows exactly what you meant to me. So, with your permission, I'm going to read my will on live television.
She held the note up to the camera, her hand trembling, and the world leaned in. In her kitchen, Margaret gripped the edge of the counter. The breath she'd been holding caught in her throat.
When I grow up, everything I have belongs to.
Her voice cracked on the last word, and she pressed a trembling hand to her mouth to stifle a sob.
Child, what did you write? What did you promise a nobody like me?
I am sorry. I told myself I'd be strong, but this is harder than I ever imagined.
The studio fell into a silence, so complete, you could hear the soft tap of tears on the news desk.
Belongs to the woman who gave me everything she had.
But the name she'd written at 12, caught in her throat again. She couldn't finish.
It's okay, baby. Take your time. I am right here.
And the name, the signature of a child's love, hung suspended in millions of living rooms, unfinished.
When I grow up, everything I have belongs to Miss Margaret, because she gave me everything she had, which was dinner.
The control room put the note on screen. A yellowed scrap with a 12-year-old's uneven handwriting. In her kitchen, Margaret's legs gave out. She dropped onto the stool by the counter, both hands pressed to her face.
She gave me everything, and all I did was cook dinner.
In the studio, the crew abandoned protocol. Someone in the back exhaled, "Oh my God," for 5 seconds. The network went silent. Just the image of a little girl's promise. Margaret stared at the screen, tears carving rivers through the lines on her face.
That child was always too good for this world.
And then, before the silence could settle, Ashley cleared her throat and spoke again.
For 10 years, she set that third plate. Meatloaf on Tuesdays, pot roast on Fridays, homework at her kitchen table. The evening news at 6.
Margaret lowered her head, shaking it slowly. She had never wanted fanfare, just a full stomach and a safe place.
I didn't do it for this. I just couldn't stand seeing a child hungry on the stoop.
I owe her my life. Every good thing I am started in that kitchen with those meals.
The camera cut to the co-anchor, who had abandoned all pretense of professionalism, tears dripping onto the desk.
And that's why I had to do something. I couldn't let that little girl's promise be just words on a yellowed page.
Margaret's hand crept to her chest, pressing over her heart, as if to keep it from breaking free.
What is she planning? What else could she possibly have written in that will?
So tonight, I am going to tell you what I did with the rest of my life, because I meant every word.
The studio light caught the edge of a photograph in her hand, a row house, but she didn't show it yet.
I bought Miss Margaret's house. The row house she's rented for 40 years. It's hers now, paid in full.
A graphic flashed. Home paid off across the bottom of the screen. The control room erupted in applause before cutting audio.
No, that's too much.
She pressed both hands flat on the counter, as if the world had tilted, and she needed to hold on. The image of her row house, the worn stoop, the screen door that squeaked, appeared on national television. Margaret's legs trembled. She was a retired postal worker. She had never owned anything outright in her life.
And I didn't stop there, because one third plate became many.
What more? What more could you possibly give?
The studio audience, who had been silent, now clapped and shouted. The news set had become a celebration, but in her kitchen, Margaret just stood there, staring, wondering how dinner had ever become this.
We're endowing the third plate after-school dinner program. Every Latchkey kid in Baltimore will have a warm meal waiting.
She named it. The third plate, a nod to the hunger she knew, and the woman who fed it.
I just set an extra plate. How did it become a whole program?
She paced from the stove to the window, her hands finding her hair, then her hips, then the air. On the screen, a logo appeared. 3 plates in silhouette, each slightly smaller than the last.
No child should eat alone. That lesson was served every Tuesday alongside meatloaf.
I still set 3 plates, even when it's only me.
But tonight, that third plate looked different. Less like habit, more like prophecy.
How can I accept all this? I was just being a neighbor.
Yet, beneath the doubt, a quiet knowing stirred. A 7-year-old's voice, telling her to trust the feast.
Miss Margaret, I know you are watching. You taught me to watch the news. Now I need you to do one last thing for me. Go to your Betty Crocker cookbook. Open it to page 212.
Margaret's hand went to her chest. Page 212 was the meatloaf. Their Tuesday.
That cookbook holds 20 years of my life. What could be left that I haven't seen?
I left something there for you last Christmas. Something I couldn't put in a will.
Margaret turned away from the television and faced the small shelf by the window. The red spine of the Betty Crocker cookbook stood there, a little more faded than she remembered. Her legs moved without permission. She crossed the kitchen in 4 slow steps. Her hand hovered over the book, trembling, as if opening it would unleash the rest of her life. Margaret pulled the red cookbook from the shelf, its spine softer than memory. She opened it. In the cradle of her left palm, the pages fanning to a familiar stop. Page 212. Classic meatloaf. The splattered stains and a child's crayon circle around the number.
Every Tuesday for 10 years. This page fed that baby.
But tonight, something else rested between page 212 and the spine. A small, crisp fold of cream-colored paper. She lifted it out with 2 fingers, her heart thudding against her ribs. The handwriting was Ashley's, but not 12-year-old Ashley.
This is new. She wrote this after Christmas.
She held the note in front of her, still folded, as if it were a bird that might fly away.
Lord, give me strength.
She traced the edge with her thumb, reading nothing, feeling everything.
All those dinners, the laughter, the homework, and I thought I was just filling a plate.
She looked around the kitchen, the same counter, the same chair where Ashley always sat, now a memorial of quiet years.
I never wanted anything back. Seeing you on that screen was more than enough.
A tear slipped off her chin and soaked into the corner of the folded paper.
What if it says goodbye? What if this is the last thing she ever writes me?
But the television still murmured behind her. Ashley was waiting. Live on the other side of that note, she took a breath that filled her whole chest and began to unfold the paper, her hands still unsteady.
All right, baby, let's see what you got to say.
The creases gave way. The note opened like a tiny door, and the words written in ink that still smelled faintly of her perfume blurred behind a fresh wall of tears. Her eyes moved across the two short lines, then back to the top, as if she couldn't trust her own reading.
After everything this.
A soft, wet laugh escaped her throat, the kind that comes when relief collides with disbelief. Then a sob, loud and unguarded, that shook the note in her hand. She pressed the note to her chest, over the apron, over the old ache for this child. The television hummed behind her. She didn't need to see it. Ashley was waiting. She looked up, meeting the small screen. Ashley had her hands folded, a nervous, hopeful smile. Margaret nodded, twice, the tears falling faster now, but the smile finally winning. She didn't read the note again. The words had already settled in her bones. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears of joy. But the note's message remained a secret held between them. Margaret lowered her trembling hand and read the note aloud to the empty kitchen, her voice breaking with every syllable.
Dinner at my house this Sunday. I'm cooking.
Not a will, not a payoff, just a plate, set in return.
Sunday, baby. I'll be there with bells on.
On the television, Ashley's nervous smile spread into something radiant, as if she could hear. Ashley's hands unclasped, and she gave a small, knowing nod to the camera. Margaret laughed through her tears, a sound that hadn't filled this kitchen since a 12-year-old last read the news aloud. For 20 years, she'd set a third plate. Now the girl she fed was setting one for her. The anchor's will, read on live television, had come full circle, not with money, but with a meal. And on page 212, between the meatloaf and the memory, Love had left a dinner invitation. The broadcast ended, but Margaret didn't turn off the television. She picked up the kitchen phone instead, her old rotary dial clicking with each number. She dialed the number she'd saved years ago in her worn address book, the one Ashley had texted from last Christmas.
Ashley, it's me. I found the note. I'll be there Sunday, with bells on.
Sunday morning broke bright and warm. Margaret stood before the mirror, smoothing her best church dress, the one with the yellow flowers. She bent down in her tiny garden, snipping a handful of bright daisies and humming a hymn from decades ago. The invitation from the cookbook lay folded in her purse, right next to the fresh-cut stems. Her footsteps traced the old path to the bus stop, but today they led a different direction, toward Ashley's new house. The house was a modest 2-story with a red door and a window box full of herbs. She raised her hand to knock, the daisies trembling with her. She knocked twice, her heart thumping like a girl on a first date. The red door swung open fast, but Ashley didn't speak a word. She just stood there in a flower-dusted apron, her eyes already filling. Then the distance of years collapsed into one tight embrace, the daisies crushed between them, neither of them caring.
I made meatloaf, like Tuesdays.
You remembered.
The kitchen smelled like the old Tuesday nights. Onions, ketchup, and something that felt like home. Ashley pulled out a chair. On the table were 3 plates, just as it always was. The third one sat empty, waiting for no one, just like it had for 20 years. Margaret set the daisies on the table, next to the empty plate, a burst of color against the white linen.
Sit down, Miss Margaret. dinner's ready.
And for the first time in 20 years, the girl who once set a third plate saw one set for her. Over meatloaf and memories, they finally talked about the will, the years between, and the kitchen that fed them both.
I started the program because I never want a kid to eat alone. Not in Baltimore, not anywhere.
You were never alone, baby. Not for a single Tuesday.
They raised their glasses of sweet tea, the clink of ice against glass, a small, joyous sound.
To Miss Margaret, who set the third plate.
To the child who filled it.
The empty third plate between them seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 meals and the promise of 1,000 more.
I keep a third plate now, at my own table, for any child who might need it.
I always will. It's the most important habit I ever kept.
In that new kitchen, over a Tuesday meatloaf, two women toasted to a love that began with a third plate. Later that evening, Margaret stood in her own kitchen, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, a familiar comfort. She reached into the cabinet and pulled out 3 plates, the same ones that had held 1,000 meals. 1, 2, 3. She set them on the table, smiled at the empty chair, and knew it wouldn't be empty for long. On the refrigerator, the cream-colored note was now pinned beside a photo of a gap-toothed girl and her Miss Margaret. She ran her finger over the graceful handwriting. A dinner invitation, not a will, but it might as well have been.
That girl kept her promise. Every last word.
The television on the counter was silent now, its dark screen reflecting the empty news desk. She didn't need the news tonight. She had all the headlines that mattered in a child's note, in an empty chair, in a third plate. Sometimes, the most valuable will isn't written in a lawyer's office. It's drawn in crayon on a torn notebook page. And in that quiet kitchen, with 3 plates and a heart full of love, Margaret knew that legacy was enough.